method you pick.
All right, sure.
All right, thank you. So let's wait 2 to 3 minutes. So just for people to begin. So by 9:10, I'll start the class by God's grace.
tó ti débi ò ṣe pè mí ìyá dúró mò ń bọ̀ ṣé bọ́ngálò yẹn ló wà. Bọ́ngálò yẹn gan ni wàá wá sí mò ń bọ̀.
Yeah. So yesterday we touched upon the part of the code that was written for the weather app, right? So what's this? That's this name. Give me a second. I think I did good freeze. I froze down. All right. Right. So yesterday we continued touching up on what APIs are, and we further explained the fetch and the docketing method that we used in the API. Right? So today will be, and we also explained what this line of code was, this part that we had to display the data, right? But we did not fully explain. We only touched upon the first part, which is the if statement. So the if statement and the response code, and we explained how this worked. So let me look at something like this. Okay. So we touched up on that part that we have XYZ. If we submit this, which one is an invalid city? We want to be able to check if the user entered an invalid city, right? So you can see that after we enter XYZ, which is not a valid city, then it tells us to enter a valid city, and it sets the search field, this place sets it back to empty. So let's say by the time we enter a valid city now this what it does is it fetches the data from wherever the API gets the data, then it displays it for us, and it also declares that error that says you should enter a valid city. The initial code that we have, it did not have this block where we could clear the error message that was coming if we entered an invalid what's it called, an invalid city. But now we accounted for that by doing this part here. So explaining how the data is being passed to the HTML file. So we are going to explain that now. Now you know we are channeling down the response that we get from this API, right? This response, if you console.log this response, if console.log this response, which is on line 29, right? Just zoom this on. It's like you guys can see. So let me click on F12, and we can see that we are returning this whole data, right, from the response file. So we have the clouds object, the code, the coordinates, the date, the ID, the main, which contains an object that has temperature, the fields like the minimum temperature, the maximum temperature, and the pressure. We have the name of the city, which is Lagos. Then the system, it contains an object called the country, the sunrise and the sunset level, and also the time zone with the visibility of let's say the weather, for example. So it contains all of this data. I want to be able to like print out all this data on our website. So how do you do that? So we essentially do that by targeting each of the HTML elements that we have, right? Like here we have this city or this class city to be New York dash US. This is the placeholder that is there. Like we want a particular text to be there. So we are targeting that by just putting a default location called New York City. So this is the default this thing that we have. This is the default city that we have, right? So right, we are targeting this city class, which is here. This city class, we are targeting it and we are setting it to the value that we are getting. Now, what is that value that we are getting? You know, since the response is the whole object, right? They are first setting it to response.name. And if you check our response, what response.name is this Lagos part, right? It will be the name of the city that we are searching for in all of the responses. So let's say, for example, I change this to let's say Borno State now, and I submit this. So it gives me the data from Borno, right? So we have name to be Borno. It's not Lagos as it is in this case. So anytime we try to search for a city that is valid, right, it's going to give us the data from that city, and the name of the city will be the name that's going to be returning in that data. So if you have city now, so we are doing response.name, right? This response.name is going to be the name, which is this one that we're getting in this data right here. So this name is going to print that out. Then it's comma response.sys.country. No, yesterday I mentioned how to index into an object that you are getting as a response, right? So let's say you have an object that you are getting as a response, and you have something that is deeply nested in that object. How do you do that? So we all you just have to know is where what you want to get is, right. So we have base, we have clouds, we have COD, we have code. Then country is inside of system, right? So if we want to get country, all we have to do is we have to first index into system, right? So that's why we did response.system, right? Then dot country, right? So country is going to be this value of country that we have in here. So if I change this to be, so what's in sys again? We have sunrise to be in sys. So if I change this to be sunrise now, it will change the value of what is going to print that out to the sunrise value of that country, right? So let's say I change this and I do. So let's say I do Paris, for example. So you see, it's not printing out France. It should be printing out France because it's country. But what we print out is the sunrise level of that country. That's why this number is showing here. So depending on what you are inputting into your data is what you're going to be showing, right? So if I were to change this to Paris back, I've changed it back to country. You can see that we have FR here, which signifies that it's from France, right? So that's how you get a particular. That's how the city text is being set. Now here, we have the city, right, which is the first argument before the comma. Then we have the country itself. So the same thing is done here. You have the response dot name, right? We do the comma. And by using template literals, if you have noticed, template literals because we want to do to get an evaluation from JavaScript, which is this response dot name, right? Then comma. Then we are using this template literal to get the system dot country too. So if you are to change this the normal quotation marks, you definitely know that it wouldn't work. And if it worked, it will be printing out all of this as this is going to be what is going to print out. Let's see. So let's say I search for Paris now. It's going to bring out all of that screen, right? See, it will print out the response.name, response.sys country, right? Because that's what the template literals for. The template literals allows us to do something like this, right? It allows us to evaluate JavaScript inside of a string, right? So that's what the template literals is for. So that's why whenever we search now, you can have a valid result as this part here. Now, the error dot context. Now there's this new concept that we have to talk up on, which is today, right? And this date constructor. So the date constructor is actually a pre-built function inside JavaScript that gets the current date that we have. Now I think I mentioned this in one of the classes that we did. Like I did this date thing. So if we console the log what date is, we should get a string that contains the current date that we are on. Oh, okay. Let me put this to the top. Because I'm putting it in the data, it's not going to evaluate that. So you see, it returns Thursday, right? February 24th, 2022, at 9:33, the time, and also what's it called? Our time zone with the West African Standard Time, right? So it returns this time as at when I loaded the app up. So that's what this date constructor does, right? That's what this date constructor that we have on top does. So let's say you have an app where you need to get the date for a particular thing and you need to get date. So you can definitely do that by just writing the date constructor. Sorry, excuse me, let me ask this people to reduce the volume. Not too much, I can really see. Yeah, it's okay there, but not too much. So hello guys. So that's what the date constructor is for. So the date is for you to be able to get like certain dates. Like whenever you launch this date, whenever you call this date function, to get the date at that time where you load your app. So that's what this date is for. Now you have something like this. You have today, and it's saying new date. Why is this here? So you want to be able to like generate dates with respect to whenever we load the app, right? So that's why this is here. So we say new dates, right? So what we're not saying is const of date. We are setting a variable where we are targeting what the value of date is. Now, okay, Alice, not to speak.
Yes, so I wanted to ask what the new function is or method because I saw it somewhere and I was wondering why they used it because it's like a keyword.
Yeah,
So is it
it's a keyword in JavaScript. Let me actually see what it is because I don't really remember. But let's check. I think it is mostly used with the date variable. That's what it's about, right? Usually with the date to kind of like get is okay. Probably it's a way. Okay, this is it. Date objects are created with a new date constructor. There are four ways to create a new date object. So I think it's a way to create a date object with the current date and time. That's just what it is. Do you get? So you see, like
Yes.
the way they are calling it is just a way to create new date objects with the current date and time at that particular period. So probably this one that we have now, but I think it should still return the same thing. Yeah, it's just ways to create new objects. Probably you want to use it somewhere in your app. So I think that's the conventional way of doing it. You call it with the new behind it. Do you get? So I don't think it's a really important feature, but it's just like the
All right,
conventional way of
sure.
doing it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Now, so what we are doing with this line here is we are selecting the query and we are selecting the date class, right? If you come here, we have this part where we have the date, right? And it contains all of the values that it contains the dates, like just a default date that is there. So we want to be able to change this with respect to the date and time that we have. Now, we now have this last one which says date inner text of date function of today. So we are creating a date function of today, right? And we are passing it an argument. So the argument is going to be the date that we are getting. Do you guys understand this? We are creating a variable called today, and what we are doing there is we are just generating a date, right? So that date that we are going to generate from JavaScript, we are passing it into this function, this date function, right? And the date function was created below. Now, so let's explain what the date function does. And before we do that, there are a couple of things that we have to know. Now, we have the const. Oh, I want to show. We have console log. Then we have date, right? Then dot. So there are a couple of things that a couple of methods that we can pass to this date. We have this get day method, right? So what this does is it will get a day from the date that we are printing, right? It will get the day only. So if we go that, let's get this when it comes up. Is it because this one does not have? Okay. So it's because of the fact that we don't have new. If you don't have new, you cannot perform all of these extra methods on the date app, right? So you always have to put new whenever you want to use the date. So this get day, what it does is to get the current day of the week using the local time, right? So the current day of the week is what it's going to get. Let me see how you use it. Okay. What is this? For line. Sorry, I want to check what it is. Oh, okay. So what it does is it gets the current day that we're on in terms of numbers, right? And what does that mean? So we have the days of the week start from Sunday. We have Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, right? So those are the days of the week that we have. So what the get day does is it will get the index for the current day that we are on. That's what get day does. So if you count from Sunday now, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Thursday is going to be the fourth day, right? So that's why this returns 4. That's what the get day does. It returns the number, like the index of the current day that we're on. So we have also get date. What get date will do is to get the current date of the day that we're on. So today is the 24th, and we have get month also. So what the month will do is to also return the index of the month that we are on, right? So we have index of the month to be, this is the second month, right? So it will be 1 because JavaScript counts from 0 to return an array. It counts from 0. So you have 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 till 11 for the months of the year, right? There's going to be 11 months of the year from 0. So the second month that we are in now is going to be 1. So what do you want to do? Because the way JavaScript return the date is JavaScript return the date like this. It return the date in this form, and we won't be able to like use this form this way. We want to be able to display Thursday in full and February in full, 24 and 2022, right? We want to be able to display all of this in full. But this is the way JavaScript will give us. So we need we now create our own array, right? We create this array of months that has January, February, March, April, May, June, December, right? And we create this array of days that has all of the days of the week, right? The days of the week: Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, right? So now we are setting a day property to be equal to days into brackets d dot get day. So what does this mean? The way we index into an array, right, is by doing this square notation, right? So let's say I want to get these 3. So can anybody tell me what this would give us? This days into bracket 3. So this this days is the array. So days 3 will be what?
Wednesday.
Okay, cool. So we want to be able to get whatever day this is, right, and print it out to this day variable that we have defined. So that's what this part is doing. So by doing days into the square bracket of d dot get day, and d is this new date object that we have here, because it is today that we are passing into this function, right? We're passing today into this function, and this is just an argument, so it's just a placeholder. So this can actually be today also, so that to be very clear. So instead of this being days, it will be to Control Z. So we today instead. And so that it will be clearer. So we are passing today into this date function, right? So that's what is going to get passed down into this argument too. So it will be today here. So we say let's day equals to days into brackets. Today dot get day. Now, before we move into that, console. Oh, okay, let me do it there. So this is not a global function, but today is just inside of this scope, right? But I want to be able to. Okay, let me just say. I think I explained this once before. I don't I explain it again. So we have something like this, right? I'm just considering logging this value, which is new date dot get date. We're getting let's do get the not get date. So we're getting the day, right? So that day is going to get printed out here. So let's look at what the value of SON is. Tell me get day is not the constructor. What is going on? Oh, okay. So it's because I'm not calling the date function here, so that's why it's saying get there as something that is invalid. So you can see now what this returns is 4, which is the index of Thursday, right? Because if you count 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, since that returns 4, right, you want to be able to use whatever this value is to get a particular index from here. Now, if this is 4, right, if this new date dot get day is 4 now, and we put this into bracket 4 into this array, the same thing will apply to this today dot get this since it's the same dates that they are getting. So we put this into bracket 4 inside of this array, it will get what? To get Thursday for us, which is the current day that we are on. So that's essentially what we are doing here. We want to be able to use the dates that we are getting from today, which is this one here, this new date, right? And we are calling get day on it. And what get day does is to return the index of the current date that we are on. So let's say today was Saturday, right? It will return Saturday for us, the index of Saturday, which is going to be 6, right? So it will be 6 that is going to this evaluation is going to come to. This today does get the evaluation will be 6, right? And whenever you pass days into bracket 6, it's going to get the Saturday value for us. Do you get? So is that explanation clear to everybody?
No, please. I'm kind of confused with the today. The today online online 64 is
64.
so this is the same as the today online 50.
Okay. Now, let me explain this part again. We have this today, right? New date is set to new date, right? Then what we are doing is we want to set the inner text of what this date is to a function that we define below, and we are passing this today here as an argument to it, right? Because the function takes an argument, right? So this today is what we are passing down as an argument to this part. So this today, which will be new date, is going to get evaluated as an argument for this function, this last function that we have, right? So in the function we have this month array and we have this days array, right? Where you have all of these months and dates, right? Now, cool. So for the day, we want to get a particular day, right? A single day. So how do we do that? We do a days array, right? We want to index into this days array to get our value. So we are evaluating today dot get day. And what today dot get day is will be this date, right? It's just like saying we are taking this instead of putting it here, right? I don't want to do it directly. So what this will do is instead of getting this here, right? Instead of getting this here, sorry, I mean when it gets this line here, right? It will attach dot get day to it. This today is the same thing as this one that we have up top here. So when it brings that down here. So this is essentially saying this new date value, right? This new date that we have here is going to get printed here, and we are going to attach the get date to it, right? Which will return an index of the current day that we are on. So that will be Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, which is 4, right? So it's going to return 4 here. So what this today does get day will be is 4. So when we do this into bracket of 4, it will return this Thursday value that we have here. Is that clear? What should we explain?
Yes, it's clear. Thank you.
Right. So that is for the days part. So whatever value that we are getting in these days, we are storing it to the day. So let's say today was Friday, for example. Now it would today does get day will not be 4 anymore. It will be 5, right? And that 5 is going to get evaluated by passing days into brackets 5. I'm just writing this here so that you guys can know what is going to be going on here. So that's what's happening in this line 63. So instead of today to be 4 again, it will be 5 now. And if today was Saturday, right? So this will be 6, and 6 is going to get passed down here, and that's going to be evaluated. So we'll be getting Saturday and storing the value to this day variable. So that's what it is essentially. Now, this get date function too, what it does is it just gets the current date that we are on. So this one is going to be 24. So let's say I think I mentioned this up top, I shouldn't just re-explain it again. So we do dot get date here. So what this will do is to just console dot log the current date that we have, which is 24, right? So this 24, we are storing that in this date variable, right? So this month, we are doing today dot get month. We also have the get month variable. So this is also going to return the index of the month for you. So today is February, which is one from the index because we count from zero, 1. So it's going to return one. This part here is going to return one. And we are trying to get the values of months into brackets one, which is Feb, right? So it's going to print out month for us, which is February. So let me, for example, let me change this to March, right? So whenever we want to evaluate this thing, right, it is going to be getting what this value is. So this will be March, even regardless of what we evaluate. So let's try that out actually. So where is this? So you see that now, right? Instead of returning February, it's going to return March for us because I changed it in the code. So you see, we have Thursday, 24 March 2022, because that's what we change it into in the code. It doesn't read like automatically like, oh, we should be February. No. What it does is we are reading the index of whatever this one is, and we're using it to get the data from this array. So I change this to Feb now. So everything should go back to normal and search for arrays. So you have this submit and you have this 24th of February, right? Now the year we are getting today does get full year. What this get full year does is to get you the full year 2022. I think there is the get year function. I think what that one does is it gets you only the last two numbers of the year. So let me try that out. I'm not so sure, but I think there's a get year function. Okay. So you see we have 122 here. I don't know why that is. I don't know, but I think it should be 22 actually, not 122. But you get the gist. So what get full year does is to get you the full year in like in numbers. That's 2022 in the whole numbers. That's what it is. So let's start for Paris again. So and that changes to 2023 stays the same. So that's what this part is for. And you know, for any function, if you want to use all of these variables that we have stored or all of these evaluations that we have made, you have to return those data. So we are returning the right. We are also returning date, the month, and the year. So and what that is we are going to be using that in our application here. Where is it being put to use? Okay. So the date is going to be used here. I'm going to return it in this order. So it is going to be day, comma, date, then space, month, then year, right? So that's what is going to be returned to this part here. What is going to be printed to this date.inner text. So if I was to change the order, right, and put this day last, and do comma day. So if I was to do that, we have, and I search for like Paris now. So instead of Tuesday, instead of the day being here, it's going to be at the end. So you have 24th of February 2022 Thursday. So this one is what is going to be printed out. So whatever order we place it is the order is going to show on our screen. So let me just return it to how it was. So that's what we are doing on this part here. Now for the temperature, we are selecting the class of temperature. Now if you check here, we have this class where we have temperature, right? We are selecting that class, right? And what we are doing is, let's see, we are setting the inner HTML to be temperature by using template right? So we're rounding up what response.main.temp is. Now let's go back to our code, right? Let's search for something. So let's check out our console and see what our application gives to us. So now you see that the temperature is under main, and you know I explained that if you want to get a particular temperature, right? Like if you want to get something but it's nested inside another thing, which is an object, all you have to do is just like put the dots till you reach where you are going to. So we are getting main and we are going to .temp, right? So that's what is being done here. Response.main.temp, which is going to return the temperature for us. Now you can see now that the temperature here is 8.3. We want to be able to round that up to 8. So there are a number of ways that we can do it. We can use the max.round, we can use the math.flow. The flow will just delete whatever decimal that we have behind of the temperature. So that's what this is for. But the round is more like advisable because it round it up to the nearest integer. So let's say we have something like 8.9 degrees Celsius. So it's going to round this up to a value of 9. So and that is pretty accurate. So if it was floor it will change the value to the value of 8, and that's not really perfect. Now, so we are doing inner HTML, right? And you can see that in this case we are doing inner HTML. I'm writing something like this: span, then degrees Celsius, then span. But whenever we check our code, I don't know, my system has not been charging. Actually. Sorry, give me a second. Let me figure out where I can charge. So you guys should bear with me. I'm really sorry. I don't know. I have to just find somewhere that there's light. Actually. So give me a sec, please.
Sorry, sorry, guys. The power ran out, so I have to just change my location to where power is. Just give me like 5 minutes. I should be in the call back.
Abdullah, were you talking to me?
No, no, no. I was just saying like power ran out where I was before, and that was why my PC was not charging. So I have to change my location. Like 5 minutes up to like 5 minutes. So just asking for pardon. All right, so just give me a minute for this thing to load. Um, I'm back. I am back. Mm-mm, mm-mm, mm. So you should probably pause the recording because I cannot see my own screen yet. I'm going to leave the call with this one now. So kindly make my other PC shoot.
Mike, please make this one. Why? Okay, so we were explaining why this math dot round is here, which is essentially just rounding up the value of the temperature. Now, you know, from the data that we're getting a temperature that has a value of 8.3, and we want to be able to round up whatever that value is to a whole number or an integer. So that's why we're using this math dot round here to get the rounded up value for this temperature. Now you can see here we are using the inner HTML instead of the inner text, and I'm going to explain. And instead of text content, I'm going to explain why that is in a minute. You can also see from this place that we have something that looks like an HTML tag, right? The span, then the C, then the other closing tag for the span. This is actually an HTML tag, because if you look closely here, what we have is not only temperature in the class of temperature, we have the span also. So for us to be able to replicate that, if we were to remove this, right? If we were to remove this, Control X, Control X. If we were to remove this and let's say do Paris now. Okay. So and do Paris now and submit. You can see that we have only Paris. So you can see now that we have only 8 here, which is not does not make any sense to have that. We want to be able to like have this temperature in degrees Celsius, right? We want to be able to put this here. So what the inner HTML does actually, it allows you to be able to like write HTML tags. So for example, if I do, let's say temp dot inner HTML, right? This allows us to be able to write something like this, like you can write a div like this and say something, right? So this is what the inner HTML allows you to do. You can write something like a div like this and do something like this, and it would still work because that's what inner HTML is. Say I was to change this to, let me just comment this out. So the inner HTML allows you the chance to write a tag like this, that you write a normal HTML tag like a span or something like that. It allows you the the ability to do so. So whenever we are returning the temperature, we're not only returning this temperature and the value, but we're also returning it with this span tag of C. We are to do text contents, which is also a way of replacing this, right? What text content will do is to change everything to a text. So even this span, we are going to see it in our browser that it's a span. So let's do Paris. You can see now that we have 8 span degrees Celsius of span. Because what it will do is it will read everything that you're passing into it as a text. So it doesn't care if one is a tag or one is not a tag. It does not read that. But if we were to do the inner HTML, what the inner HTML does is it would read everything like a string normally. And when it gets to something that looks like an HTML tag, it will evaluate that as an HTML tag and it will print it out. So that's why we have something like this, where we can just write 25 degrees C without actually having to bother about it. Like, how do we do that? So that's one of the advantages of inner HTML over text content. So there's also this inner text tone. That one, it sets the text only. So we can use inner text here too. Inner text here. So what that will do is it will also set everything to to a string. So we'll be saying this span too also. So let's do that. So Paris. You can see now it's the same thing as text contents. You can use them interchangeably. It just depends on what you want to do. So you see that it also returns what the span and the tag. It returns all of that as text. It doesn't care if it is a tag or not. But the inner HTML, it definitely reads something that's a tag and it prints out based on that. You know, span is an inline element, right? That's why this temperature degrees C's can be like side by side with it. So if I was to make this a div now, I think you should change that because a div is a block element. So you can see now that the degree Celsius is down below, not beside it. It's because span is an inline element. That's why it is printing side by side with it, but a div is not an inline element, it's a block element. So whenever we do that and we search back, we should get our normal output, right? So we have something like this that just shows our output. Now for the weather, we are selecting, we are just writing a variable and selecting the class of weather. So we have here what this weather is, which is a sunny weather, right? Which by default is sunny. So we want to be able to set what that value is to whatever we have. Now, if you check our responses so far, okay. So we have this response here, right? If you check the weather, you can see that it is returned in form of an array. You can see here is an array, then you have an object inside it. And you know, I told you like if you want to like index into an array, right? We actually mentioned this thing very well yesterday. So where we have an array and you have an object inside it, how do you get that? So we mentioned this yesterday. So you have an array, right? Then there's an object inside of it that you want to get. What you do is you just index into the array that you need. Let's say you have an array that has two objects, right? And you want to get the first one, you have to do the array into bracket of 0 for the first one, and the second one you have to do 1 in terms of 2. So the same thing applies to this, right? We have response, which is an object, then it contains an array, and that array contains an object. So you know, I mentioned this very well yesterday, like when we're trying to do when you're trying to evaluate responses. You might have an array inside of an object. You might have an object inside of an array. You might have them like deeply nested inside each other. Like the one on top will be an array. You have the one inside to be an object. You have the one inside of that object to be an array. And you have the one inside of that array to be an object. So yeah, you can have something like that where it will be so confusing. And you have to be switching from getting an array to getting an object to getting an array to getting an object. So that example is this shows exactly that. So we want to get the main weather, right? This is the weather array, and it contains this object, right? The object contains the description, the icon, the ID, and also the clouds, the main. So we want to access this main property here. So, and the main is an object, but the object is inside the weather array. So how do we do that? So you know we have to do response.weather to actually get this weather here, right? Now, and you know, the weather, it contains a single array, right, which is just the first array. If you want to index into an array, the first, let's say the first property or the first elements that you see is it starts the index with 0. So we do weather into bracket 0, right? So weather into bracket 0 would return all of these values that we have here. So we have clouds, you have icon, you have description. Now, so we are doing dot main, and what this means is we want to get just this dot main value here, which is going to be clouds. So we could do something like description, right? Right. So what that will do is instead of getting the main weather and printing out the main is going to print out the description. So let's say we have Paris now. So now you can see that it's not printing out clouds again or sunny or anything. It's printing out the description of that cloud, which is overcast clouds. So if we were to change that back to what it was, which is main, so you're going to see that we have the clouds as it should be. So you have weather, you have the clouds. So we can actually add a description item. So let's do that actually. So let's say const description equals to document create selector of description, right? Then you can set description dot inner text to be equals. Now let's copy this. Just see, make control Z to C to V, right? Then instead of this to be main, we have to do description. And remember, this will not show anything. And why is that? Because we don't have any class of description inside of this place here. So we have to add description class. So let's do this. I'm doing description. I'm doing weather description to be equals description. So what I'm doing here is nothing too fancy actually. Right, so we are doing weather description and we are setting the description here. You can see now that we have that line here. So you have weather description, then you have this description. Now in the script, you want to be able to do weather description here. Right. I'm not sure if this can work. Nah, it's not working here. Let's see. I want to see that. Pretty sure it would not work. Now, so we are adding this weather description line, which just shows us the description of what the weather is. So let's do Paris now. You can see now that we have the temperature, the clouds, and the weather description, which just denotes what the value of the weather, the description of the weather is, the kind of cloud it is. So it's an overcast cloud. Now, if you check our response now, we have in the weather, we have this weather description, right? So we are calling it the same way. It's just that the value that we are getting is different from the value that we are getting for the weather. So the weather description is for this description here, and the clouds is for this clouds here. So hopefully we got that. Did we all get it, please? Hello, class. Did we all get that?
Sorry, you passing that index of 0 doesn't mean that it won't go at random. It will only pick the first description of the. It will only pick the description of the first item. Abi. That
No,
line, that
no.
weather,
Yeah, I get
passing
you.
0.
Yeah,
Okay.
I get you. So in an array, right? You might have. I mentioned this yesterday. Let me just write it. So let's say we have a const of array to be equals, then you have this array, right? Then I have a comma b comma, I have the last one to be an object, let's say down, right? You have this to be your elements, right? So if I wanted to get a, I would do arr into bracket 0, right? Oh, not this bracket, into bracket 0, and I'll be able to get a. If I wanted to get b, I'll do this, and if I wanted to get this object, I'll do 2, right? To get this object here. So the same thing applies to this weather array. So the same thing applies to the what's going on. A is not defined. Why am I using A? Let me just take this out. Okay. So the same thing applies here. So let's do Paris now. I'll submit. Now, if you look at the response that we're getting, right? The response that we're getting, we only have a single object inside of this array, right? A single object. So it's that object that contains the data that we need. The object that is being gotten is a single object. Let me just use the browser so that we can see API. So let me change this to Paris. So let that load up. Where's my JSON? Please, wait. Why is this not loading? Aha. I was wondering why it's not formatting it. So now, where's that? Okay, this weather now. Now, you can see this weather that we are getting, right? The one that we are indexing into. It's an array that has a single object inside of it. This is the object that is inside of it. Now, let's say we have like 2 or 3 objects inside of it now. I want to get the second object. We're going to be doing weather into brackets 1 because that's going to be the second object. Because this is a single object, right? We want to be able to get the value of this single object. That's why we're doing weather into bracket 0. Now, let me say, for simplicity's sake now, let me just put this here. Console log response dot weather into bracket of 0, right? To see what this value is going to be. Now, if you go to our app now, 11, and search what Paris is now. So and go to this. You can see now that response into bracket dot weather into bracket 0, it would return this object for us, because for the weather is an object. Where is it? It's an array that contains one object. But when you do this line here, response dot weather into bracket 0, we are getting the object itself, not the array. So we are getting the object itself. So in an object, how you can get the value is you do the dot and the name of the property that you want to get. So if I wanted to get main now, like we did for the weather, we do main. So if you wanted to do description now, like we did for the description, we get description. If I wanted to get this icon, all I would do is just change this to dot icon and it will change with respect to that. So Fatima, did I answer your question or still confused?
Yes, you did. Thank you.
All right. So that's all that part was about. Okay.
And sorry, please, I want to confirm this API that we're using, is it static or is dynamic?
It's dynamic in the sense that it is the data that you need to get, right? So let's say, for example, probably tomorrow the weather of Paris changes. It will change with respect to that data. It's like live data. I don't know where their source is. Probably they're just fetching different data from different
Okay.
sources, or they have people that help them monitor that. But they always change it with respect to the current weather that you have in those cities that we're searching.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. So you can check Paris tomorrow and the weather might not be 7 degrees Celsius again, it might be something higher. Let's check Lagos for today. So, I think Lagos yesterday was around 24 degrees. So you see now, Lagos today is not 24 degrees. Yesterday it was 24. I'm pretty certain. Today is 31 degrees Celsius. So the data is just gotten. Let's check Google. See. So 30 degrees is almost accurate. Let's see. Yesterday was what was Wednesday. Uh, I don't think I can go back to Wednesday. But you can see now that this is 30 degrees Celsius and it's pretty accurate. So we change it to Fahrenheit, you have 86 degrees. So, and this one, our own is telling us that it's 31. So that is more or less the same thing. Do you get? So the data is with respect to like the current weather that you have in each of the countries that are or states that are searching. So it's dynamic, not static data. Hopefully that answers your question, Fatima.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
All right. So I think that's about okay. So we want to explain the temperature range now. Now the temperature range is very simple. It's just we are indexing into the let's do this. Okay, so we have this mean here that has all of these objects. That has temperature, diffuse like the temperature mean, the temperature max, and the pressure and the humidity, right? So the temperature mean, the temperature range is we are just getting we are selecting this query, this last one here, which is temperature range is 10 degrees C by 15 degrees C, right? That's what we are selecting. Now we are setting the inner text to be the temperature range is equals this one. We are rounding up response dot mean dot temperature mean. You know, we are doing response dot mean, right? This mean here, then the temperature mean, this one, this temperature underscore mean, which is 7.53. But we're rounding it up. So this is going to get rounded up to probably like 7 or probably 8. I don't know. So and this round up will do for response dot mean dot temperature max, which is the maximum temperature that we have here, which is going to be 9.73 for Paris. So it will round that up to probably 10 or 9. So let's check what that does actually. Paris. So you see, the first one it leads to 8, then the second one 10. So you're rounding up to the closest integer. Since the first one was 7.5, we took it to 8, and this one's 9.7. The closest to be it should be 10. So that's why they're both rounded up to 8 and 10. So that's essentially what sorry about that. So that is essentially what we are doing here, right? So we are getting the minimum temperature and we're just writing a slash and getting the maximum temperature. Now this last one, the weather icon, is which is what we are targeting here. We are targeting this class of image of weather icon, right? So the source is so the icon URL is this base URL, right? All this URL is actually provided by Open Weather. So let's say you do Control C now and do Control V, right? So let's say you wanted to get this. Let's see. For this one, it was the icon ID is what you're going to be passing into this URL, right? The way that you use you see, this thing just comes down to documentation if you need it. What they're doing here is whether they're setting the SRC. This is an attribute. We said it when we started this document side, like you can get the attribute of an element, not necessarily the class only that you can select. So after we select the class, we're trying to set the SRC attributes. By default, we set it to an empty attribute, right? There's no source for the file, the image that we're seeing. So we want to set the SRC property and set it to this icon URL, which is going to be this URL right here, and set this response to weather into bracket 0.icon. Now you remember from this now that we have weather, right? In that weather, we have this object that contains the ID, the mean, the description, and an icon URL. What this icon is just the icon for the temperature and for the kind of weather that we have. So let's say 04D, right? So let's put this here, 04D.png. Now, if you check this out, this should return an image for us. Let's see, what are we doing wrong? Okay, we don't have to put .png here. Okay, I don't know, it's supposed to show what this image is, but possibly we are not doing it. Oh, I think it's 049D, 04D, not 04D, that's PNG. Okay, so I was getting the ID wrong, that's why it was returning an error. So you can see now that the image that we are getting from this URL is this small image, right? So that's essentially what we want to do. We want to set the source, the SRC attribute of the image. We want to set it to what this URL is. There are ways you can set the source attribute of an image. You can get the data online. You can get the image online, or you have it in your local folder and you are trying to do it there. So we are trying to get this from the online source, which is this Open Weather Map, something that they have given us the URL. So what you have to do for this URL is you just placing the ID of the icon. By ID, I mean this icon image, right? It has its own like little number. It's an ID of that you can use to get an icon. Let's see if I change this to Lagos now, that would change. So the icon will not be 04D again, it will change. So now we have 03D. So with respect to each cloud, it changes. So that's the same thing. But just passing in that icon value here and we're doing .png. So what this will do is it will get this image. You see that this is that URL here, 04d.png, and it returns this value. So if you change it to 03d, that will be good. You see it changes to this icon here. So that's essentially what this line does. It just gets the image for you, and we are setting that to the attributes of this weather icon. And if you know, the weather icon is just a class, and we're setting this SRC attributes to this value here. So whenever we load our page, right? Where's our weather? So let's say we have Lagos now. So that image that we have now, you see this one is the same thing as the one that we have here. So we're just essentially taking that image and we are placing it in our app here. So that's what we are doing for this temperature, for the ID image. So, and we also, like, after everything now evaluates, we are setting the search value to be equals empty. So that's why whenever we search, let's say we search for Lagos now and we click on submit, you see that this goes to empty, right? So if this was not removed, if I remove that actually, and I said like Paris now, and I submit, you see that it still remains as Paris. So it's this last line that is just clearing the value and setting it to an empty input. So we search for, let's just do Washington. So you have this and it clears the Washington. Wow, so your temperature is -6. Imagine that. Oof, 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 oof. So that's that about the weather app. So we can actually like print out other values. I think that's going to be a class quiz now. So I want us to print out other values in the weather app. So we have, let's see. So you can create a humidity and pressure tag like kind of like an HTML file that will account for that. So and you'll be getting this data and you'll be printing that to that to that account. And this wind, you get this wind speed too. I need you. So I hope you are noting that you get the pressure and humidity from me. I don't even have to tell you where it is. You start it for yourself. So by that you'll be able to gain debugging experience. So you get this pressure and humidity, and you get the wind speed. And which one is I want something that is I think that's all. I want something that is deeply nested. We don't have deeply nested things here, but this will do. So you get the sunrise also. So I want you to get sunrise, the humidity and pressure level, and also the wind speed. So that should be done in 12 minutes. This is 34, right? So by 12 minutes, 12 minutes is much. Let me just give you 15 minutes. So we've done by 49. This is almost done. So 15 minutes, you guys should be done by 10:50. Did we all get that? So you're getting the pressure, the humidity, the wind speed, and the sunrise values. So you can just print that out as the data. So you've done 15 minutes and everybody should submit. Everybody. Okay, so I'll help you try copy some of them today. I'm not talking to you guys. Let me just make the mic. Okay, so it was Chinedu, yeah. So Chinedu, I saw your message, right? Um, you could have just asked me to re-explain. I don't know why you guys are like this. Like you're very, very fun. That's the essence of the class. If you don't get something, call me back and I'll re-explain. At least that's very, very fun. But anyways, sorry, what I've been doing in class since morning, do we all understand? Or have I just been talking to myself? Apart from Elise.
I understand.
I understand.
Okay. So at least you could have just asked questions. I don't know why you guys always feel you cannot ask questions. Doesn't concern me what the rest of the class would think now. Ask the questions. If you don't understand it, how do you explain? I've done that like a million times for the past 3 weeks. I always ask.
In my opinion,
Yes.
it's deeper than, I don't know. I actually need to learn and then ask questions because it seems all so overwhelming and vague to me. So I have to learn first and then I'll ask you to explain where I don't understand. Like I have to attempt learning. That's just my method of learning. I have to
Okay.
kind of like attempt it myself and then get the whole concept before I can ask somebody, "Oh, please help me with this." So yeah.
Okay. Okay. No problem. That's not bad actually. It's a good way of learning, actually. But no problem, Cha. But you know that you have to submit this assignment, Cha, this class quiz.
Okay.
I don't think it's
Sorry, an
anything.
assignment.
No, a class quiz that I just said now, I give you guys 15 minutes, but you guys were not listening.
I thought you said you were not talking to us.
No, the whole of the classwork was for you. You get the pressure, the humidity, the wind speed, and the sunrise level, and you're printing it out to your HTML file. That was for you.
Okay, the humidity, the
The
what again?
pressure, the pressure, the
Okay,
sunrise level, and also the wind speed. You're printing
okay,
out that out to your HTML file.
okay. Which API is this? Is this the one we are using?
Yes, no,
The
it
weather
has
app. Okay,
yeah, the weather API, it has all of those things. So it's up to you to search where it is and print it out.
alright.
Okay, and Michael just said I should ask you guys, your capstone project, how is it going? Or your designers have not yet delivered the project. You can speak with your mouth and type with your hands. Your capstone project, how far? Hello, people.
I want to even be sure of the hierarchy of this thing. Is it that after the product managers do their own, then the designers will design, then the software developers will just code whatever design we are giving to.
That is exactly how it should.
But my own group, they are telling us that we should work together with them. I'm trying to tell them that I want just to code, that they should produce whatever they feel they want their website to look like, and then we code. But they
Okay.
are of the opinion that we should work with the designers and try to look for templates of websites to replicate and things like that. Is that how it's
And
supposed to be?
the thing is, it all starts from the product management level. You have to know what you want to build and how you want to build it. So they communicate that to the designers, and the designers interpret that into giving you the design that is required. Normally, you're not essentially, you don't have to be in any of those processes. But let's just say for the sake of you want to move faster, you might be. So in the sense that you have to probably just like hasten them up and tell them that to hurry up, because I don't know if there's a timeline on the submission of the project. And trust me, it is easier to envision something and say, oh, this thing you can easily build it. When you start building, you start seeing that, oh, there's a lot of things that you have to like do and you have to like make come together. So you get, so you definitely have to like speed them up with regards to the product design so that they can speak with the designers and they get cracking. But I think you guys shouldn't waste much time. You can just talk to the designers to give you sort of like a mock-up. So the mock-up is what you guys should be following from now. And whatever changes is going to be added to that mock-up, it's not, you tell them that it's not going to be something that's going to throw you so much off balance, because it's pretty important. You can't have been designing something and they finally finish the product design and the designers come with something else and you totally have to restart where you have limited amount of space. So it's up to the designers to actually, the product managers to actually hasten up. You can probably speak to Micah about it so that they can talk to the product management group to get their shit together. Sure you get. So the normal hierarchy should be product management to design. Then that part you're not even interested. You're not supposed to be in that process. It's just designers to give you the feedback, like, okay, this is what the product is. This is how we want the flow to go, and they'll give you the design, and you guys will follow through with that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Anybody else with difficulties?
Visibility. No. Please, I need to see this thing on my. I'm trying to use. I want to see it on my browser, like so that I will know how to pass in the.
And you can
You said
just
for,
you
for
can check
what
it
and what?
for humidity, pressure, the wind speed, and also the sunrise. You can just print it out in your console and see how everything is now. It should work fine.
Okay. Humidity, pressure.
Probably should write it down. Imagine now you have a deadline now. They are telling you guys that you'll be submitting your pitch decks tomorrow by 11 before 11:59 p.m. Well, I don't think that concerns you. It's probably the product designers.
Please,
So
I need help. Oh, how do I console.log this JSON?
okay, it depends on how you are returning your data now. You know what how we are returning our own data is you return response.json, right? And you do console.log to return the response, right?
Okay.
So that's what you do. You just console.log what your response is.
I did that. It wasn't.
Let me see. Let's
Okay, I think.
can you copy how you are calling and how you are fetching the data to the chat box so I see? Or you've
Right,
resolved
I'm
it.
coming. Not yet.
Okay.
Hold on, let me. Okay, I've gotten it. Thank you.
All right, nice. I think time is up, more or less. So have you been able to do the assigned task? Hello, people. Hello. So no one's answering now. Should I give us like 6 more minutes till 11? Because I guess that's when we have to take the break. Safe.
Sorry, please. I've not been able to see the data. I'm trying to console it and I'm not seeing anything in my console.
Now it's probably you have to search for something before you actually see it. Are you searching? Then you click on submit, then it's
No.
returning it.
No,
If
no,
if
I
it's
don't want.
using your pure data, you just need to uncomment it. It's already there.
So
I'm using what?
If you're using the data Abdullah said, just uncomment it. That you'll see this comment it is
the
hidden
console.log
console.log
log
response.
response, yeah.
Okay.
It's on. It should be on line 29 or something like that. So my have you been able to do the
It
task?
remains the last.
Okay. All right. And let me just give us 6 more minutes till the break. Then by the break we take a break. Then when we resume, we make the correction. So I'm just saying this thing. Russia don't attack Ukraine like this. Imagine. I guess we can all go on break now. So by 11:30 we resume and we continue the class and make corrections to whatever we have. So So, are there any difficulties or any blocks in doing what you have to do now, or you are fine
Yes,
to?
yes.
Okay,
I've not been able to see the data yet. It's telling me invalid API key.
invalid API key. Then you should probably check your API key and check if it matches with mine. Let me copy and send what the API key is for you. Let me copy it and send and check. Try to check. I don't know, probably because you guys should probably sign up for the this thing because I don't think more than 5 people can use the API at once. I just remembered now. So you guys should probably sign up for the open weather map. They will give you your own API key, so you can use that API key in what you are doing. So you just replace what we have here with your own API key. But let me copy and send it to you and see if it's still the same thing or it will work. Okay, my review is done. So that's the API key and Fatima. So you can copy it and check if it's the same with you. Okay,
All
no
right, thank
problem. My review will be reviewing it when we resume the class. So I guess you can go for the break. I'll stop sharing my screen so that we can save the time. So I'll be expecting us all by 12 by 12. No, actually should be leaving the call because of
Very nice background though. I like.
You said what?
Maybe I can't hear you or you're not speaking.
I wasn't hearing you. I said, what did you say?
I said the background I use for that weather app makes sense. I like it.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
Okay, let me join from my PC then.
Michael, please make this the co-host now. I left my phone.
So you said I should do what?
Like make this account like this one that I'm speaking from the co-host now. Like I left with my phone, so this is the one I'm using.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'll just rather make you host so that you can make others co-host if you want.
All right, thank you. All right. So maybe let me see your code. Apparently you've done the stuff. This is the pressure, the humidity, and the wind speed, and also the sunrise. So makes sense. That definitely shows that it works. But let's see.
I should go to my JS code, right?
Yeah, JS code.
Okay.
Kindly expand it.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So let's see.
So
The pressure. Okay. For humidity also. And also for the system sunrise. Okay, nice work. So that's essentially what I asked for us to do. So nice work, my baby.
thank you.
Yeah. So anybody else, Fatima, are you able to do it, or you still had that issue with the response?
I was able to do it. Ravi later helped me with the response.
Okay. At least, Mr. Ezra, you can let me make you post so you can share your screen too. So we see that. Mm. All right. So you're co-host now, so you can
Okay.
share your screen. And Mr. Ezra, what's up? And Anu, okay, everybody, what's up? Do you have issues doing it, or you have not tried it at all?
Okay.
Okay. Temperature, the weather is clear. The range, the pressure, the humidity, the wind speed. All right, nice work. So I guess you kind of like follow the same approach as my review. Makes sense. All right, anybody else? Were we able to do it? Hello? No response. Interesting. So was anybody else able to attempt it before I continue with the class?
Sorry, I personally did not attempt.
Okay. And I guess probably when you make your research around it, you'll be able to attempt it. I'm expecting it, more or
Yes.
less.
Well,
Okay. Okay, no problem. So, so far, has there been any issues? Because I would love to know now, so that we won't progress to doing something else and kind of like find out after that there's an issue with this one here. So I would assume that for the objectives of this API I'm doing, to understand how to get data from an API, how to like get specific data, even if it's an array or an object or an array nested inside of an object or the object nested inside of an array. And also when you have deeply nested arrays, like arrays that are deep into each other, I'm assuming that we understand how to get those.
yes, sir.
Okay. Just to test that, this API that we have, this JSON placeholders API, I'm going to use that for a small quiz now. What it has is it has multiple objects inside of an array. So I want us to get the array values. So for the first object, you get the name and username. For the second object, you also get the name and username till you reach the last object. So you get
Sorry, are you
the
sharing your
name and
screen?
username. No, 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 no. I'm not.
Okay.
Let me do that. Okay. So what I was mentioning, this users place this URL that generates random dump data for us. So essentially it's an array, right? And it contains objects inside of it. Each object I want you to retrieve the name, the username, and this phone number that is here, this random phone number. I want you to retrieve that. Also, like you retrieve the name, the username, and the phone for each of the array by for each of the objects that is inside of the array. Do you understand what I'm saying? Now, inside of this array, you have 10 objects, right? So for each object, you get the name, the username, and the phone for each object. So each object has this name, the username, and the phone. So you get name, username, and phone for each of the 10 items from this URL. Do you get? I'm
Yes, I
guessing you
think I
get.
get it.
Okay, cool. So I'm going to be dropping that now. See, and you guys should be attempting these things because, like, more or less, that's how you probably want to do it for things in like in the real world, like a real life scenario. So I'm copying this thing now and I'm sending it. So that's the URL. Once you go there, you have to index out name, username, and phone for each of the objects inside of the array. So good luck. You have 15 minutes. So I want us to move to a to-do list app right now. So please finish that up in 15 minutes and we'll see how we create a to-do list.
Um, um, I don't see an array name. How do we go about that?
You don't see an,
Array
I don't get
name.
you.
You see, it's
Oh,
there
okay,
are
like a
different.
variable.
Yes.
You know, what you do is you use the fetch API for that method, right? It's kind of, you just do it the same way. It's not an array itself, it's an API, right? It generates that data for you. So you use this normal fetch method that you use to get your data, then however you want to store it, probably want to console log it, which is not advisable. So you probably just create like a small HTML, just HTML with docs, and you want to print those things out there. Do you get? So you use the fetch API on that URL that I sent, then you return your response the normal way that you should be able to do that. Then when you do that, you get from each response, you get the name, the username, and the phone number for each of the objects that is in the array.
Hmm. Well,
Yeah, I
I
can hear
guess
you.
I think I'll send mine when I'm sending the other one.
No, 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 you have to send it now. It's actually easy now. See, what you have to
Yes,
do,
but
okay,
okay.
what you
Go
have to
ahead.
do is, we mentioned this thing yesterday, the fetch, right? Let me see if the history is still here. Okay, you do something like this. Let's say Control C, right? You do the fetch this way. Then instead of this URL, this API URL, whatever that is here, you're going to be using the URL that I sent, right? Then you get the response. So let's say this is the response now, right? And then you do another dot then like this. Let me just walk you through this part. I'm not going to do it again. So you do another dot then, and what this would return is you just do data, and then you do something like return data, right? Why is this not working? Okay, let's do return. Oh, okay. All right. So now what this would return is going to return the whole of that object array as a data, right? So let's say you want to get the first object, all you have to do is whenever you want to call it, it will be data into bracket 0 like this. Then you'll be able to call whatever data is inside of the whatever data is inside of the first object. Do you get me? Does everyone follow that?
Okay.
So you have
I
a
think so.
URL like this, you fetch it, then you change it to a JSON file like this, then you return the data this way. So if you want to get the first object, you do this data into bracket 0. If you want to get the second object, you do 1, then 2. So let's say you want to get the first data, this is like the second data. Now if you want to get the username, you just do dot username. And if you want to console.log it, you can console.log it. Let's just use console.log for simplicity's sake. So everybody should console.log each value. Do you get now?
Okay.
All right. Let me make that 20 minutes because I think it's a bit complicated. So 20 minutes.
As in processing this information self is a lot. Are we going to a print for, we have 10 items in that array. Are we going to print for 10, or is just going to be one user's information that we are printing?
No, 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 no. You are going to print for the 10. So let's say you are
So
returning the data now, which is an array of all of the objects, right? It has 10 objects. So for you to get the first object, you do data.0, right? The data into bracket 0, shape. Then when
okay.
you do that, you'll be able to access the objects, the values are inside the first object. Then you get the
Yes, I get.
name, username, and the phone number for that object. Then move on to the next one. You do that for the second object, then the third object, then the fourth object till you reach 10.
Okay.
So when you get the first one, the format is the same thing for the rest. It's just getting the first one that is the problem. Once you get that one, the format of for the rest is the same. Come on. Hmm. Okay. Come on. So, guys, what's up? What's up? Chat, the chat. If you just Chinedu, just go to Google and copy it. And it's not on anybody's keyboard. Go to Google, search the social degree symbol. Just copy it from there.
Mine is telling me that data is not defined.
After you return data this way.
Yes.
Okay. Can I see your code? It should be defined.
Okay, let me. Can you make my laptop?
Okay, I'm coming. Chill for a second. I want to do something on this one. Let's see. Give me a second, please. And just to just yeah. To check this out. So it actually says the same thing for me too. Let's see. Change it to you should return, you should leave data out and just return the response itself. You get, if you return the response, I'm sure it should go back to normal. Let's repeat. It's the same thing actually. Yeah. Give me a sec, please. How can I do this? Okay, I guess what you have to do is just create kind of something like this, right? Create something like this, like a function that will get called. So you just have to call it whenever you need it. Create something like this. So you return the response of JSON, then when you do the dots, then you return a function. So it's inside of that function that you define whatever you want to do. Do you get? You create something like this display
I'm
data.
not okay.
So that display data should
So I'm
have,
not seeing. I'm not seeing what you're pointing at exactly.
okay, let's say you have, the way I ask you to do this now,
Hmm.
okay, is this way, right? You do this return statement, then you return that response to JSON, right? Then the data, you leave it this way. So instead of doing this, what you do is you create a function, right? Let's just say for the sake of arguments, let's just call it like a function of data, right? So you now create a data function like this. So this is going to take the response that is coming, right? The response from the data, right? Then this is where you're going to perform the action. So let's say you want to do press for the first user one equals response, right? Into bracket 0 dot. So this is what you have to do. So you write something like this, right? A data that would return this response. This response, it comes from the fetch, goes to this response, then it's also passed down to this data function that we have, right? So let's say you want to get the name of the first user, you can just do something like user one name is equals to response, then you do something like main, for example. So this would log what you now do on the next line. You do a console dot log user one name. So whenever this fetch runs, right, the response will be passed down to this dot then and it will get down to this data. So from the data now, let's say, this is the open weather map data. So let's say we want to take this main as our data that we're getting in. What you just do is, okay, you get what main is, then you print it out to your console like this. So you do that for user one, for the name, for the phone number, and for the username. Do you get it?
Okay.
Right. So if you do this, this should go up. Let me just response.main should be all right, it works. So that's what you do. Okay, so has anybody been able to finish up with it? Anybody in the house? I think we'll probably have to use that makeup class. I think a lot of people would find it useful. Just pay have data to do that. So anyone, have you been able to attempt it or have you been able, probably you have issues with it? Because tomorrow I want us to move. We probably won't be able to do it today, so but by tomorrow we should be able to create a small to-do list app. So what that does is just you enter in what you want to do for the day and it shows up on your screen and that stores it. No one is answering. Is it that hard to do? It's really complicated and I think once you get the first data and everything comes out, it will be easy to do from there. So are you having issues with with getting the first data, that one of the first object?
No, I've been able to abstract for the first one.
Okay.
I actually implemented it using an object so that it fetches an object for each of the this thing,
I
each
don't
of
understand
the
you.
index. I put, you know, you said we should fetch the name,
Mm-hmm.
the zero and age. So I
Okay.
put everything in an object. So I
Okay.
console
Okay.
dot log the
Okay.
object name
The object.
for
Okay.
each. Yes, yes, yes.
Okay.
So I've just done one actually. So I was testing it before, but it's working
Okay.
now.
Okay. Cool. So my review, what's up, and others? Because I noticed a lot of people have not been talking recently.
I'm getting
Plus,
it though.
okay.
Mine's giving on the fine. I'm not getting the hang of it.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So we'll probably make corrections. We have to make corrections. So my review, what do you think the issue is? What is your error? What are you getting?
Okay. I'm trying to call out the response.
Okay. I think
But
before you start getting the whole data, before you start getting the name, username, and stuff like the phone number, just try to see if you are getting the whole response first. I think that's the first step.
I'm getting the whole response. Is how to
Okay.
call it out. I'm a bit confused.
I mentioned it like the whole response that this API is going to give. When you check
I've
it,
gotten that.
it is an array, right? It's not an
Yes,
object.
yes, it's an
So if you
array.
are using the dot to actually like get the first object, it will not work. So for you to be able to get the first object that is in the array, because the array just has like a number of objects in it. So if you want to get the first element inside of an array or the first object in this case, you have to put a bracket of 0 for the first one, right? So
Yeah.
do that and check the response. So what's it saying? Is it returning the object that has ID and the rest of the data like that?
No, what I'm saying is like okay, I created my const, let's say user one,
Okay.
then equals to response. That's why I'm stuck. I don't know the format to call it out.
Okay, do you want to use it to call the response or you want to get particular data from the response?
Mm, That is where I'm stuck. I don't know what to do specifically.
Okay, okay, I understand you. Alice, what do you think your issue is?
Mine is saying, I don't know, when I put in zero, it's saying cannot read properties of undefined, reading zero at data.
Okay. First, check if your response is returning a valid if the response is valid, like if you have data in that response before you put a 0 in it
So I should just console.log the response.
and see what it is.
Okay. Okay, same JSON native code, FJSON native code.
Yeah, that's the issue. So the promise has not been thoroughly evaluated. So I guess we can just do that now and see like how you would go about it.
Okay.
So let's see. Anybody else in the call, do you have any issues doing it before I move on to making the corrections? I'm guessing today's class has been a bit confusing and people are not asking questions. But anyways, I'm going to make the correction now. And I think only Fatima was able to get it. But I think this thing is quite simple. You actually take your time with it. So I'm going to be explaining that now. So my review, let me make your co-host already, I think. So share your screen and let's discuss what you have. So pending time that I'm making the correction, just go on with like trying to solve it yourself.
Okay.
Now share your screen. Let me stop my sharing so you can share. So share your screen. Okay, we have a missing initiator. Just expand your screen, I guess. All right. Okay, so the way you get it is you just console dot you do response, just put response there directly. Now check what user one is the data now.
I get this area now. How to target?
Now, so what you do is you won't store this to user one to get. So what you can do is you just store it as user so that it will be general. Do you get? So for you to now get the first user, right? What you do is you do users then into square bracket of 0 to get the first object itself. You still have to do it inside of the function. Yes, it will work. No. You don't do it that way. You don't do it that way. Just do 0 first. Don't put the dot. So you see now that you have the what you want, right? So it is outside of that square bracket that you now put the dot, not inside.
Yeah.
So if you want to get name, you do dot name, and that will return you the name. So you can okay. Let's see what you want to do. Yeah, do what you want to do.
Sungo, I have to call it the users again, right?
Exactly. You call the users. All right. So I think you have the hang of it now. So
Okay,
it's
but how do I now get to put a comma, like to separate?
to separate it.
Yes, to differentiate.
And what you can do is just store like each value inside and
So
inside
brackets.
no inside a variable itself. Do you get?
Inside what?
So if you know like you are saying const users is equals to response now. So you can do something like that. You say const user one name. Do you get like the first user's name? Then you do a user's dot into bracket 0 dot name to get that user's name. Then you console log that out. Do you get?
So can you take it again?
You see, you are saying users is response, right? Which is the old data, right?
Yes.
This users square bracket 0 dot name, right? You can store it in a variable, right?
Okay.
Do you get me? So
Yes.
when you store that variable, it's that variable that you'll be logging out instead of writing everything like this.
Okay.
Yeah. So, or
But that
better
would,
still, you could do it. Okay. Yeah.
I was going to say that would take a longer time if I'm going to call for every.
For for every yes, it's real. So what you can do is make an object, right? That has the name, username, and the phone number. So in that object, you just be putting these users into bracket 0 dot name. So you console log everything one out at once. That's what Fatima did. But don't worry, I would make the corrections, but you just understand how this works now.
Yes.
So let's say you want to get the third user now. What would you put in that square bracket part?
To be 2.
Exactly. So you get the whole gist now.
All right. Thank
So when
you.
I make the correction, you understand. So at least share your screen so that we see what's up.
Please make my PC co-host.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So what do you think the issue is yourself? Like, what do you think the issue is?
Initially, when I remove the brackets from the JSON, when I remove the brackets, it reads when I put the bracket, it reads an error. And when I remove it, it doesn't read an error, but it reads another error for the console.log thing.
Okay, let's see. So you are returning the data, and the data is a function that has a response, right? So you are console.logging. So when you console.log this, what does it do?
Okay, right now with the JSON having brackets, when I console.log it, this is what I get.
Unexpected cooking. Yeah, this is not from your own side actually. The URL that you're using is actually the API that you're using is different. Do you know?
Mine or yours?
Yours.
Is different from yours or whose?
Yes, it's different from what I give you. But you've not noticed.
Yeah. Okay, let me copy it again.
Yeah, check it and see. Check your own URL and see.
Okay.
VS Code.
Okay, I'm just looking for charts to copy it again.
Yeah, that's the URL.
Okay.
Now look at your own URL.
Oh. Wait.
Just do a backspace. It's because you entered the next line.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so try checking it now. You see, these things are simple actually. It's just like little mistakes that make you feel like you don't understand what's going on. You read it.
Okay. I really did.
See, you have your data now.
Okay.
No, it won't be outside. It won't work that way
Oh,
too.
sorry. I mean, yeah. Right?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Yeah. So hope
Okay, thank
that's
you.
clear now. No problem. So give me a sec. I'll make the corrections now, so you can stop sharing your screen so I share mine. صغيرا. Yeah, that's more. So guys, let's do the control Y. Okay. Let me just change this URL so you understand. يا من يريد العافية يلهو بدنيا فانية اذكر حديث الغاشية وابك بعين داع. أصبر. So don't have any errors now, right? Now, so this is what we are doing. I fetched the data, then returned the response, right? And I and passing it down to this data API. So what we can do, call all these ones users, right, and call them the response. So let's console the log what that is, so that we know that we are getting our data. So I think that's one of the first aspects to using any API. You want to definitely know that you are getting your response before you start performing any action on it. So most of the time you might probably not be calling the right API, or you are calling it wrongly, or you are doing something like that you're not supposed to be doing. And I think if you can always read what your error is on your console like this way, it will most of the time point you towards what you are doing wrong. Like you just have to read it. The error is not something that you should run away from or should scare you because it looks like all this red thing and you don't really understand what's going on. But by the time you actually read them, you find out that it's probably a missing comma somewhere. It's probably an API that I'm calling wrong, or something is not defined. Then you go back to your code and you check it out. It will even give you the line that error is coming from. So you'll be able to check it out and see, this was where I was making my mistake, and you can improve from there. Do you get? So you get, as much as as much as errors can be like really, really overwhelming, and it's like I don't even know what's going on here. Most of the time, when you take time to read what the error is, you actually get solve half of your 75% of your problem from actually reading your errors. So I'd advise that. So now we are definitely getting a response. So we have how many objects? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So we have 10. That means our response is right. So the way Fatima did it is she just said const user1 equals, then she created an object, right? You can call this name. It should be comma. So you have a name, then you have a user name, and let's do a phone, right? Okay. So this by default, I made it just empty strings, right? So if I console.log this out, console.log user1 out, right? So you have name, the empty name, the phone number, and the username printed out to the console. Okay, so that's good. So for this user1 now, I want to get the first user. I want to be able to get this guy here, this first user with an ID of 0, right? Basically, with an ID of 0, I want to get his ID. Then I want to print out his username, his phone number, and his name, right? So what I can do now is I can just say, instead of this, I'll use a template feature, right? So I'll do something like a $sign and a quotation mark. Then I would say users, then square brackets 0, right? For the name, it will just be dot name, right? So I can copy this out, Control C, Control C, then this Control V. For this case, it will be the username, page down.
Hello, sir. Sorry,
Yeah.
your screen is.
It's not showing.
It's showing on
I
my
don't know.
end.
It's showing here.
Actually, you should probably check your network. The other says it's showing. No? Let me stop sharing and share again so that you can check. So I'm sharing again now. Can you guys see it?
Yes, it's showing now.
Okay. All right. Nice.
I wanted to ask you, did you give the CSS part?
For which part is that?
For
this
the weather
one?
app.
Yes, I gave it. I gave the CSS for the weather app. I gave it. This is it. I dropped it. I told Elise to send it.
Okay, so I didn't get it though. I don't know. I wasn't in class yesterday. And
Okay. And you should probably just check the group. Elise sent it. There are 3 consecutive files. So the last 3 files that Elise sent, it should be them. So it's the HTML, CSS, and JavaScript files. So you can just check it. Yeah, no problem. So for this now we can do .username, and for the last one we can just simply do Ctrl V, then it will be .phone, right? So if we check our users now, we should be able to see that I print out the name, the phone, and the username. Do you understand now? So this was what I asked you to do when my review, that you create a user one object, right? Give it a name property, then you'll be able to fetch the first user's name, the second users, and the third users. Now, if you want to make this, now it's going to be easier now. If you want to do for other users, all you have to do is copy this down, right? Okay, let's make this user 0. Choose it. Let's make this user 0, right? User 0, the first user. User 0, cool. So let's copy this down. And just do one or two more examples. So for this one, change this to 1. And for this, I'll change this to, for this, I'll change it to 2. All right, so you can also log user, then user 1, then user 2. So we have three objects now, which will contain the first username, the phone, and the email, and the username. The second one contains the second user's name, the phone number, and the email, and the third one is the same thing too. So if you check our data now, you can see that the first name is Leanne, second name is Ervin, and the third name is Clementine. So the same thing applies to our data too. So you have Leanne, you have Ervin, then you have Clementine Bosch. Now, so that's that. So you do that for the 10. But you know now, like in most of the time in JavaScript, you don't always want to repeat yourself. Can anybody suggest what we could do such that we won't be writing this multiple times? We just write it once and it should be able to like do something over the data that we have. There's a better way to do this.
A loop.
Yeah, a loop like we do this super quickly. You won't have to do all
Function.
of this.
Hello?
I can hear you, Victory.
I said function. You use a function.
Okay, yes, you can definitely use a function too. So, but what a loop would be better in the sense that you won't have to write it multiple times. I can just write a single for loop that would iterate over all of the objects that we have in the array and to print something like this out. So let's see how we can achieve that. So for the for loop, if you remember, even if if I also remember, but let's see. So for the for loop, you write something like, or should I give it as a classwork? Kind of like I don't want to do anything. So let's say for let I to be equals 0, right? Then you do the comma, right? Then you say I less than what's it called? The array that we need actually. So user dot length is users actually. Users dot length. How do you spell length? Like this, yeah. Comma, then I plus plus. I plus.
It's supposed to be a semicolon, not comma.
Imagine that. I was wondering why it was throwing the error. I was already thinking it's dot. So we have something like this now. So what do we want to do? We want to be able to like print out our user based on what I is. So we can do, let's copy this. Control C, Control V. So what you do is just comment out this one. So instead of user 0, what you do is you can do user I, actually. Then this should be user I. Oh no, if you want to do this, you can just do user then this, right? Then close this again. Oh, it's a user this I cannot do this. Imagine this was not, it's not a JavaScript evaluation, so I cannot do this. I wanted to do a template literal. So since it's not in a curly braces, we cannot do this. So let's call our distinct user, right? So all we have to do now is to console.log what user is. So this will call it here. So do we understand what I'm doing? I hope this is not too archaic for us, like it's not far forgotten for us. What we are doing is we are using a for loop, right? We are using I is equals to 0, then when I is less than users dot length, which is going to be 10, right? We want to do I plus plus. So for every value of I that we get, we want to get the name, the username, and the phone number. This would save us so much time to print out everything at once. So let's see what that is. Imagine. Beautiful. You don't have to go through the stress of writing everything all at once, like writing everything one after the other. In code, as much as possible, you want to be able to like reduce drastically the number of times that you repeat yourself. You see now, we only repeated ourselves once. Instead of doing this over and over, over 10. Let's say we had like 2,000 data that we had to do something like this for. This is very, very useful in that sense. So all you have to do is you put the user values in this form, then you put your your username, then your phone, then you log everything out as user, and you get your data. Do you understand? Or I should explain how this is working?
I understand. I understand.
Okay, Chinedu, do you
What's
understand?
the real application of this? What's the real application of this?
Okay, let's say you want to print out something now. You want to print out a name on, like, let's say you want to do something like this. Instead of Neo QS, right? You have like 2,000, like, let's say you have card component. Oh, okay, let me bring out something. I don't know which. I want to know a website that has cards like that. Okay, I think TMDB does. Let's check TMDB. Let's wait for this to load up. TMDB is very heavy. Now we have this something like this. Now you have TMDB that has this name and the date. It has this name and the date. It has this name and the date. How this and this image too, how this will be returned, it will be returned in form of, I used it in the app actually when I was using it too. So it will be returned in the form of an array, right? You have an array that contains all of these objects, right? You have the title of the image, the date that it was released, the
Hello?
rating. Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah, I can hear you now.
So can you hear me? I'm trying to explain how it would matter in the real life, right?
Yeah, I'm listening.
Okay, so now you have all of these cards here, right? It's just designed. The way it is they return an array of data, right? The array of data will contain the image, this image that we're looking at. This rating, this 84% it is a rating on its own. This euphoria actually is also the title of the image, the release date, everything, all of the image, all of the information that you see on all of these things, they return it in form of an array or a data, or like an array of objects, right? So each object would contain something like this. Let me show you the API so that we can understand what I'm saying. I'll show you the API now so that you see. API. Let's open this on another page. I want to copy my API data. I just want to get my API data so that we see some things. Control C. Okay. What was listed? I think lists. It was under list that I got those ones. No, not there. Okay, TV. Yes. TV. Okay. Get latest. Right. So let's do this. Let's use this one. So all you have to do is enter your API key, right, for this API to work. So let's copy this, Control C, and now Control V. So let's wait for this to load up. Now you see how they're returning their responses, right? So you have the API like this. You have something like an object. This one is starting with an object. But sometimes they start with an array, right? So you have this, you have all of this. This one is not good. I need something that has all of these movies. There's this one that I use for the movies. You know, let me check movies here. Okay, get popular. Try it out. Just see. I'm coming. I'm just trying to set an example. Shift. And okay, so you have something like this, right? It's an array, it's an object, right? So you have this page that has results, right? So the result contains all of this. You have adults, you have general IDs, then the English, the title, the overview. You see that everything is returns it in form of an array, like you have different data that is inside of it, right? So if let's say this is not going to be for one movie, it's going to be for this is one movie, Spider-Man. It ends here, right? And this one too, you want to do Kingsman, this movie too. It ends here, right? So you want to do Scream too, that one ends here. You can see that there are separate data for separate things. And you want to be able to print those out. Like you don't want to, if I want to write this out in code, you don't want me to be able to just, I will do the first data like this. Then after I do for the first data, I'll now go ahead and do for the second data also. So let's say I have like three. Okay, let me now show you the results of this one, the total results. You see, the total result is 64,000, I mean 649,580 movies. So imagine if I had to do for all of that, like I had to print
Can't
each
hear
and
you
every.
anymore. Can we?
You cannot hear me, guys. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can actually hear you.
You should probably check your network. Victory.
Yeah. It was my network.
Okay. Okay. So what I was saying is, if I wanted to print something like this out now, like I wanted to print the original title, the overview, and let's say the rating. Where's the rating? There's rating here. So I don't think I see rating here. Okay, let's say the voter average. Okay, this is it. The voter average is 8.3, right? So I wanted to print those three things out, right, over every data that we have here. It's going to be a lot because the total results that we are getting is 649,518 movies. So imagine I had to write all of that, write it one by one, one by one, one by one, this way that we did. I write everything one by one after the other, one after the that one after the other, that is going to take you a whole lot of time, like a shit amount of time that you get. So that's what this for loop is actually useful for. It lets you like go over a certain array or a certain object one at like it allows you to go over it without actually having to write all of those codes. Now, if I wanted to use that for this data now, all I have to do is just specify that okay, I is 0, I is less than the that array length. Then I want to increment this, I want to do this over that array. Let me just copy that and bring it here so that we can see. I'll use this API now. This API control C, right? And I do, let me see how it is structured so you can know. So you have the page. Okay, you can just do the results. This one's dot results, right? So it's the results that actually has all of that. Okay, cool. Okay, so yes, so all I have to do is just bring this out. So I'm putting this data here now, right? This whole response results here. So you can do that. You see, I changed something as response dot results. That is because the response that I'm getting is not an array itself; it's an object, right? And that in that object we have this results array. So that's why I'm doing response dot results. Result is the one that contains the array that we want to use. So now in that case, let me comment this out, right? Let me comment this one out. The for loop. I'm commenting the for loop out, right? So I just want to get Let's say I want to get the original title and the let's get the title and the vote count. So if I wanted to do that, let's make this title, and then this will be title, right? And we are going to make this count, right? Title and count. I hope you understand what I'm doing, Sha. Or I'll actually explain. It should be vote underscore count. Now, so what we are doing is vote underscore count. And this will be title. So what I'm doing here is I'm just console log user 0, comma user 1. So what I'm doing is I am getting the response from this API, this movie API, right? And I'm bringing that response into this data function, right? So what the data function, let me look this. So what this is we are returning the results, right? And in that result, we are getting the title and the vote count. So if you check out our console now, so you can see that we have this Spider-Man No Way Home and the other one, which is Kingsman, and we are getting the counts, right? The vote count 1323, and this is 8256, right? Let's check that. So you can see now for Spider-Man, the vote count is 8256, and for the Kingsman, it is 1323, right? So those are the votes count. So let's say I want to get for every data that is inside of this place now. If I continue doing user 1, user 2, user 3, user 4, user 5, it will continue. So we continue that over and over and over and over. And we have how many data that we want to go through? Let's see. I have like 649,518 results. So if I continue doing that over and over and over and over and over again, it will not make any sense. I'll just repeat myself. So we can definitely use a for loop to take care of that for us. So we just use this for loop, right? This one that we have here. And say, okay, for every data that you get to, just print this out. You do title and votes underscore count, right? So this saves us the stress of actually having to recopy all of this and do this countless times. Instead of me doing all of this countless times now, I won't do this countless times. I will only do this once. I already define this user object once and it will work. Now, if you go to our console now and check, you see, you get every movie without actually having to like write user 1, user 2, user 3, user 4. Do you get? You see now, we're not getting the whole thing because the way the API is structured, they only do for page 1. They also change this to page 2 now. Right? I say page 1 and 2 now. I think it still returns for page 1 only. Let's see. Oh, it still returns for page 1 only. So let's say I change this to page 2 now. To page 2. You see that the response of this one is different. It starts with Jack in the box. So that's like the advantage of using this. For instead of me to be able to write like all of that, I will write it out like one by one after the other, to the number of counts of results that we have. I won't have to do that. I will just use a for loop that would go over that array and to get every required result that we need. So let's say we want to get the overview also. So we can just come to this line here and do overview, right? And change this to overview. And I'll just comment that out. So by the time the result is returned now, you can see now that everything comes with the overview. So you have the name, the overview. Peter Parker is blah, 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 blah. And that's that. And also for the next one, it does that too. So it allows you the ease of not having to write those things over and over and over and over and over again. Now, let's say I wanted to print this out to my console now. I can just go to my index.html. Let's target this and say div for, let's make this is a class of overview, right? what I can do is I will just say, um, okay. So I can just say, instead of console or login user, I can just say inside the for loop, I can just do something like documents dot query selector, right? Then I'll make it a class of overview, right? Then I can set the inner HTML. Let's do text contents now, right? To be equal to, I can just take this here. I can take user dot what dot name, right? And this would set the value of this document, right? It will set it to this overview, it will set it to the user dot name, which will be Spider-Man for the first one. And let's check our console, our weather app actually. So you can see it prints out the last one. And why is that? It's because it will continue reading the value and read the value and read the value continuously until it reaches the last value. So if we put this in the for loop actually, it's not going to read it. So you see, it reads the last one. Let's instead of putting I, let's just do user one, and user one. Oh, U1 is Kingsman. For zero is Spider-Man. Zero is the first one. So let's do user zero now. You can see now that I can get my first data this way. So let's say I wanted to get, like, I want to repeat something over and over and over and over and over again. This is a very, very good way of doing it. Like for every user that I get, I want to be able to what's it called, to print to the console to print to my UI that okay, this is the movie that I'm getting. Hopefully, Victory answered your question. So instead of going over data one by one, when you don't know the amount of data that you have, it's very, very useful to use the for loop to go over the data and print whatever you want to print out. Do you get?
Yeah, I get. Thanks. But really, all these things, they will really begin to make sense when we begin to apply it to build real websites and all that.
Yes, definitely. Now that's when they actually make more sense. Because now, let's say you want to build something like this. Now, it is going to make more sense because now you want to be able to look over that. This thing, you see, that same API. This is it. So you want to be able to look over that array, right, and generate all of this data. So you see, the Spider-Man, the No Way Home. You want to be able to like do something like this for every card item. You want to do something like this. So you see that it stops at 355. That's what the extent of our own data to is. So you'll be able to like loop over these things. So that's the essence actually. It's a real life application that really like get to see like, oh, this is how this is useful. Because now it just looks like it is like far from touch or something, like you don't really need it. Or you definitely need them. And it's by the time you start building projects that you want to do something, like you'll be like, do I have to now write user one, user two, or user three, something like that? That's when you say, oh, I can use the for loop to implement something like this. So that's why I mentioned to was it Ezra? I think yeah, it was Ezra. That is actually by building projects, by getting your hands on stuff, I get to know okay, what is the best way to do this thing. If I continue using the manual way, I'm writing user one, user two, user three, it will not make any sense. So it's until you start building projects that you actually see that oh, this is how this is useful, and that is how that is useful. Do you get? Hopefully, I was able to communicate a bit to the class.
And sorry, please let me chip something in actually in the real world, it is most companies don't deal with raw data. They tell you to fetch their data from an API from the back
Definitely
end.
now. Yes,
So it
definitely.
is the most important thing we need to know as developers.
Honestly,
Fetching
it's like
API is very paramount. Yes,
very,
nobody will
very
code anything for you.
definitely, definitely. So you have heard the boss. Definitely, no company like I repeat it's like forever and ever and ever and ever till kingdom come will they ever say you upcode their data? It's impossible. So they have a data or a server that actually stores all of those things, right? So it's up to you to fetch those data. You have to fetch data from where it is and use them in your own app. So you without having the knowledge of APIs and how to do those things and fetch and loop over some certain data that you have, you can never. So imagine you say, okay, I can fetch the data and be looking at it one by one and hard code it. No company will give you that time. It just does not make any sense. If you are working for a major company that they have like 3 billion users or something, like let's say you're working for Facebook, imagine having to hard code for 3 billion users, the data of 3 billion users, it does not make any sense. It does not. So you definitely have to have the knowledge of what APIs are, how to use them, how to fetch them, how to loop over them, how to get something. So probably in the crash class that I am planning to organize on Saturday, God willing, there is like proper conditions for it. I would mention something too. It's called the map feature for arrays. It's very, very important. So we'll touch on that on Saturday by God's grace. Hopefully the class works. So I think with this we have stretched our time actually, and I think I did. So we stretched our time, and I think we can close to this 12:49 already. So if there are any questions on what I have explained so far, please kindly ask them now. Questions, please. There are none. I'm guessing we aren't. Okay. So nice having you in class today. To the attendance was low. I don't know why. Probably ask on the group. I don't know why it's so low. If you have any issues, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. I'm always open to explaining and re-explaining what we have or what we have gone over. So thank you guys for attending the class and have a wonderful day, whatever is left of it.
Thank you, sir.
All right. So I'm going to stop the recording now. Michael, if you have anything to say, I don't. So if you have anything to say, you can go ahead and speak before I end the call. It's probably not here. So let me just stop the recording and end the class.